Hey everybody, this is Perch. I guess we're in the middle of I, I don't know. There's a bit of a schism, if you will, of people who watch YouTube channels and comics that has nothing to do with comics. So we're not talking about Marvel versus DC. We're not talking about the indies versus the big two. We're uh, talking about business in comics or just quote unquote enjoying the comics. I think you can do both. Um, again, sometimes I get mail that's very similar, and usually the similar mails are about somebody said something, and so they're poking me with a stick, like which side you got to take, Perch? Take a side, and then I don't take a side, like you're a Fin City, you little prick. Anyway, I don't I don't know, but what's kind of amusing to me, and I'll give you this version of a story. One of the challenges that a lot of small companies face, when I say small companies, I mean like a startup. Startups are, in the world of tech or fintech or, not so much medicine because medicine you have to have regulations. It's a different thing. Obviously, you have startups in medicine, but there's other factors that are going to take longer based on the built-in laws of how medical regulation works. But for most things, especially software, most software is not regulated. So you basically go in and you have an idea and you try and get somebody, a big company, to try your idea, basically pilot it or test it. If you're really hustling, you get three or four companies that are piloting it and testing it. And you've bankrolled this company with your own money, typically, or what's called an angel investor, a friend, somebody where you don't have a big hook into it, but you've lived like a pauper in a storage unit, and you have. I'm exaggerating heavily. A lot of startups don't work that way either. But anyway, you basically conserved your cash and you've gone and got a couple big customers to say, that might be interesting. Maybe you filed for a patent or two or three. You've thrown in the words AI somewhere in your pitch. It used to be Internet of Things, and then there was machine learning was in there. You had cloud services, SaaS based cloud AI driven, whatever, just something in there that's got all the buzzwords. And then you go and you try and raise your own money. So you go to larger investors, you try and get 5, 10, $50 million of investment money. I would say just like they do on Shark Tank, but I have a feeling that a lot of the people who are currently talking about comics and the business and like what movies make and all that, their financial information is from Shark Tank. That's as far as they've gone, and they really don't understand some of the things that are being said there, but they do like to laugh the jokey ideas, and so now they're finance experts. Anyway, so when you go and you do this, and you go raise money, what typically happens in that world is that you're drawing a revenue curve. And the revenue curve is what we call a hockey stick. And what that means is it starts out, picture a graph, picture a little line going from left to right, starting at the bottom left. And, the goal is in your little business presentation to have the line up in the top right by the time we're all done with this presentation. So typically what happens is you give yourself some runway. That basically means about a year and a half where you can spend all of the money without a lot of people breathing down your neck and without your investors wondering what's going on. And basically want to have as little oversight as you can for as long as you can. So you will draw a line that says, this is my, 3, 5, 10-year plan. And in years 1 through 2, the line is, moving from left to right, but not really going vertical, just kind of very slow. And then it starts to tick up and up a little bit. And slowly it gets to the inflection point. And that's where you basically are telling the story of, and then we'll have customers, and then it will pop, and then people will be paying for all these things. And you hockey stick up, which means the line starts going more vertical than horizontal. Okay, so we got a little line, it goes slowly from left to right, and then it starts to climb, 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 and then suddenly it kind of skyrockets up. And this is and basically this is the graph that people show investors. And in some cases, when you have like Disney with Disney Plus, their streaming service, they showed a very similar graph. Like we'll use our existing base, and then people will sign in, and we'll get content, and then everybody will be here, and they'll be paying forever. And the challenge with this graph is always what's called there's a term for it, but the sarcastic term is called overtime because it's the hockey stick, and then you got overtime. I don't know why. It actually doesn't make any sense from a sports perspective. But anyway, basically, it's that things don't go up indefinitely. It's kind of like, have you ever played the game with your friend and you could do this? Which would you rather do? Would you rather have $1 million today, like right now, $1 million, or would you like to have a penny today? But tomorrow we will multiply it by itself. So basically, instead of one penny, you'll have two pennies. And the next day, instead of two pennies, you'll have four pennies. Instead of four pennies, and so on. You basically you multiply it by itself. So 4 times 4, you know, is 16 by 16. Anyway, that's what you do. And the idea is like, which would be better for you? Take the million today or just get a penny today and have it multiply by itself for 1 month, for just 30 days, 31 days. You can start with a penny, and for the next 30 days, it'll multiply by itself. Which will make more money? Well, if you play this game out, most people say $1 million because it's like, yeah, it's a penny. So of course, I'll take the $1 million. But of course, the penny is the right answer, because you multiply a penny by itself over 30 to 31 days, you'll discover it gets to higher than $1 million. And that is to some extent the hockey stick effect. Because what happens is the dollar, the amount that you're multiplying against itself gets to be quite high, and those numbers start to jump dramatically. Now, if you really want to play this game out into kind of the silly factor, I promise this does have to do with comics. You check out, keep multiplying that penny for a second month and a third month, and see how long it takes to get you to $1 billion. The spoilers, not long. And this is kind of the problem with how people now view comics and movies and everything else. Because I know it sounds weird, but right now we have MCU films, we have Superman, we have all these films, and the bar that a lot of people online like to use is like, it's got to make $1 billion. Well, why? 10, 15 years ago, that was not anyone's bar. That was it was absurd. It was rare that a film jumped to that level. Avatar remained the highest grossing film for a long time. Movies just don't, come step up to the plate like every film's going to make $1 billion. But a lot of it is that mental curve that's going on. It's people just going, well, the last movie made money, so this movie has to make more money, and the next movie has to make more money. And if you play that out, eventually you get to just stupid levels of cash, impossible levels of cash. And I think in doing so, you kind of wreck your. I mean, this is all very familiar, because in some ways, this was what the comic business was like in the early 90s. It was like the hockey stick effect. And what happened was you had, variant covers coming out. You had speculators coming in and buying like 10 copies and everything else. It's like, it was amazing to me as a retailer how quickly it went from, hey, I want to buy a comic, it could be worth something later, to, hey, this comic could be worth $10 later, to, hey, this comic could be worth $1,000 later, to, hey, this comic's going to put my kids through college, to, hey, I'm going to retire off these comics. Like, that is all math built in someone's head, and it's all fake, and none of it is actually going to happen like that. But it is that is the effect that I see a lot of people falling into, and you see it definitely with movies. You saw it with the Fantastic Four. It's like the Fantastic Four has got to make, $1.5 billion in order to, be profitable. Like it's, people are raising the costs at the same accelerator as they're raising the profits, and the profits that people are projecting are based off of kind of the top movie that happened before. They're basically, in these models, nobody has accounted for anything to go down. Everything is just up forever and ever. And that'd be nice, but nowhere in the history of life has that ever occurred that way. That's not how anything works. That's not, if you look at Disney Plus, you look at Netflix, you look at a lot of these streaming services. I don't know why more people don't do this, by the way. You look at your stocks app. If you have the iPhone, you got a stocks app there. You can search stocks. You can search for, say, a Netflix, NTFX. I don't think there's an L there. Maybe, I think it's if you could just also type Netflix, it'll give you the stock. Or look at Disney, or look at any of these, and you will see you'll likely be presented a 1-day view or a 1-week view, which is either red or green depending on how things are going. Or if there's a current controversy, it may look like, holy shit, like the number was high on the left and now it's low on the right, and that doesn't seem good. Things have dropped. Do me a favor, with a lot of these companies, just go and look at the 5-year and the 10-year. That gives you a better sense of where things are going. And I know it's long-term investment, but if you're looking at giant billion or trillion, going a trillion, dollar companies, multi-billion, we'll stick with that. They don't think in terms of 1 week, 1 month. They think in terms of 5 years, 10 years. They have to. I mean, remember when everybody was crapping on Tesla? It's like, Tesla's lost all its value. The richest man in the world is Elon Musk still. Tesla does not look that bad if you look at the stock and you just look at any length of time. By the way, if something happens between me recording this video and the video going out, like Elon comes out and decides to grow a Hitler mustache or something, and the stock plummets by 10%, please don't go in the comments and go there, well, this didn't age well. Yeah, dumbass. It ages just fine. It all ages just fine. Netflix apparently just stepped into some kind of controversy. People discovered that there was a trans show back in 2022, and it's there. And the only good argument I think you can give with all this is, because this show is long canceled, but it is still up, so people could view it. And so maybe people's argument is like, well, why don't you take it off? If it's there, you should not even have it in the first place. Okay, I mean, you could. That's a more that is a more sensible argument than getting angry at something that canceled 3 years ago. But whatever. But I'm seeing a lot of people like, oh, this company's about to go out of business. This stock is down. Like, they've lost like 200 points. Like, okay, again, go back 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, 5 years. Just take a look at how this stock has performed. That people don't invest. Like, you don't just yank your money in and out every day. I mean, people do that. They go broke. There's like the promise of the day trader. But anyway, with it, back to kind of some of the original questions that had happened around economics and why we have so many people doing economics. I mean, the big answer here is that if you talk economics, it kind of allows you to not really know what you're talking about. Because at the end of the day, if you're trying to get credibility, you could say something like, this Fantastic Four comic sucks, but it's a, subjective opinion. The person next to you may think the comic is great. The person, on the other side may think it's the worst thing ever. You may think it's mid, whatever it happens to be. There's no real way to win that argument. I mean, granted, people in comics try. They try and win these arguments, but on page 3, the dramatic tension was not. But what you'll notice, and this is working in a comic shop for decades, you will notice that whenever there's some kind of subjective argument, people will start to pull out whatever kind of objective reasoning they can get to. Well, this comic sold less. Well, this comic, if you notice, the English structure is not. It's kind of one of the only complaints I had about the great late Peter David, because I love Peter David. One of the things he would do back when he would write his article in that newsletter back in the 90s is he would kind of use like, well, these are the rules of the English language and how stories should be constructed in order, like, this is the classically, he would bring some of these things up, and it's like, yeah, the story is entertaining though. I mean, I get that you're using a bunch of, either economic reasons or English language reasons or, literary, like, well, here the writer started a sentence with the word and you're never supposed to start a word sentence with the word. It's like grammatically incorrect. Yeah, but it was a good line. Was it entertaining? Yeah. I think that, that's kind of the argument to a lot of the current, finance struggles people are having. It's like, this movie didn't make $1 billion, but did you have a good time? Did you? I mean, this comic, there's a lot of comics that sell really well or, well, a comic, there's plenty of comics out there that the big two put out that are selling 50,000, 60,000, 80,000, 100,000 copies that I don't think are very good. I don't, this new Batman run, I don't know, seems like the same old shit. Matt Fraction's got the police hunting Batman. Oh, okay. I mean, sure, why not? We've seen this 8,000 times before, but okay. But I it doesn't, it's whether I enjoy it or not, it's selling well. Like the numbers are high on it. So therefore it's great, right? I mean, if of course not. It can be whatever you want it to be. The reason why people bring economics or more structural things in there is to boost their subjective argument. That's why they do it. And if you do that, you present the illusion of being kind of an intellectual, somebody who it's like, well, I can't argue with that. I mean, it's the newest Marvel movie did not make 10% more than the last Marvel movie. And that, when you start using words like cash and percent and return on investment, ROI, those seem like serious words. So this must be a serious opinion. That's what's going on. That's what it feels like. That's what's happening. At the end of the day, like the comic, don't like the comic, like the movie, don't like the movie, whatever it happens to be. The economics of the business, I'll do the sales videos and I'll do stuff like that, but it's not meant to change the way you view comics. I recently I had the Fear Itself sales video put up. And I think Fear Itself was an interesting moment in time because it was basically the balloon popping on kind of Marvel's, can't fail event strategy. That's what makes it interesting to me. But a friend of mine said it's like, it was a good video, but I couldn't tell if you liked the comic or not. I thought about it. I'm like, yeah, I actually never said because I didn't think it was relevant to the sales video. The sales video was talking about kind of a moment in time. Did I like Fear Itself? No, actually, I didn't. It felt like bait and switch to me. It's like, yeah, we're going to do a bunch of big reveal moments. Bucky dies, gets stabbed through the heart, and then we're going to bring him back to life. It just felt like a lot of bait and switch. I didn't care for it. Premise was interesting. The execution I thought was poor. But that's my subjective opinion. When I try and do the business stats, it's an objective opinion based on, some analysis. Quite honestly, you guys get to interpret on your own. Anyway, I'm not wading into that fight. I'm not wading into the fight because there's no value I can have to this discussion. But that's kind of the basic, what's going on and, why people do this finance stuff. Anyway, thanks for listening.